video to your video, methadone, or rather you. Hi, you. Now listen, I totally appreciate your videos on here, and it's really important to keep these sorts of conversations going because there's too much damn hostility on the internet overall. And so, that's the good thing about this conversation between all of us. We can agree to disagree without taking up arms and shooting each other. So that's the really good part. As you know, I disagree with you in terms of Obama, in terms of the Democrats, and not the Democrats as a whole, but in terms of this whole presidential election, which in my view is a total farce at this point. Every president, every person who even reaches that level has to be vetted by the corporate sector at this point, and that includes Obama. I'm sorry, but it does include him. Look at the corporate funding that he gets. Both candidates are basically vetted by the corporate sector and the big financial sector, because they're gonna place their bets no matter what, because somebody has to be subservient to them. So the way I see it, the presidential ticket is really not that important in terms of the larger picture anymore, which is why I'm not really paying that much attention to it, because this sort of executive position is more or less either a position which was already vetted to start with, or it just becomes a sort of bullet pulpit for the already established norm. And so I'm not in favor of that, so I don't really pay attention to that aspect of politics anymore. As far as trying to change the makeup of Congress itself, and we do after all have 525 members of Congress. I think I'm right on that. 525. Which includes both the House and the Senate, then that might be amenable to change over the long term, but it's not going to happen short term. So that would take a lot of work. And so if anybody is going to vote, you should probably focus your efforts on that rather than just the executive branch. Now, I do know what you're saying. I do know that there is an ideological difference, at least as we perceive it or have perceived it in the past, between what they call Democratic and Democrats and right-wing Republicans. You see, the problem is this, that the entire political spectrum in the United States has moved so far to the right that somebody like Obama can actually be considered the center at this point. And that is not the center. I'm sorry, it's not. There are many other opinions out there. If you leave any kind of party affiliation out of the actual issues, and in terms of all the polling that's going on in the country, people are very confused about issues. And for the most part, they actually are in favor of most of the social programs, despite of what they may abhor in terms of abuse of those programs, which on the individual level, I might say, is not very great. On the corporate level, however, it is astronomical. And I think most people don't in this country are just so brainwashed at this point. They simply cannot see this. So that's one of those problems. It's a problem of perception. And anybody who thinks that the mainstream media is somehow liberally biased, well, I've got news for you. The only thing they're biased in favor of is making money. That's basically it. If you've got your ratings up, if your ratings shoot up because of some controversy or another, then that makes money, that brings the ratings up, and that's what it's all about. All about. Nothing else. Nothing else. There are no long-term considerations there. There are only very few members of Congress who actually do have long-term considerations in their mind, but they can't even get a word in edgewise at this point. Meanwhile, the entire population in the United States is getting dumbed down to the point where they can't even distinguish science from fiction, facts from opinion, and so on. I mean, it is really pretty pathetic when the question goes around, well, is the sun circling around the Earth, or is the Earth circling the sun? And 50% of people can't answer that question. That is pretty pathetic. And then once you consider, all these debates, these God debates, intelligent design and all this crap, once you figure into all this, this right-wing push towards creationism, towards non-science, basically dumbing down the public, trying to eliminate whatever public education is still out there. And let me add, I do believe that public education does need to be improved in a major way. There are many flaws with this, okay? But to eliminate public education altogether and just leave it all in private hands, a for-profit scheme for everyone, is completely ludicrous. Because life on this planet is not just about profit making, okay? This is no education at all. Basically, it diverts you from any critical thinking whatsoever, period. So yes, there are difficulties out there, but you need to see the larger agenda. And I know, Meth, I know you see this. I know you see this. So we have no argument. We have no argument with each other on that score at all. And most people living outside the United States just can't believe what is happening in this country. How can it be that we have a country with nuclear capabilities and a population so dumbed down at this point that they believe that the universe is 6,000 years old, and people are shaking their heads around the globe? I mean, it is incomprehensible as to how much the U.S. population has been dumbed down in terms of propaganda and the educational model. So, that's what I have to say, in a larger context here in response to your video. It goes way beyond politics at this point. It goes way beyond politics. And the last thing, that progressively minded people want to do is to start a war. We really don't want to do that. On the other hand, all of us have to be realistic about the onslaught that we're facing here, which is namely, a bunch of nutcases. I mean, these people are truly nuts if they believe that the universe is 6,000 years old. These people shouldn't even be driving a car. Because everything that they drive, everything that they do is based on the scientific revolution, which has been going on for quite a number of years, I might add. And it didn't just happen in the last 20 years, as they imagine in their little Texas revisionist textbooks. So, yeah, it's a strong statement coming from me. But on the other hand, people like you and me, you and some of the other commenters on here that, we've been in contact for years. And we all know that squabbling amongst each other, will have its limits. We're not going to trash each other. We're not, there can be disagreement. We may disagree with the strategy and all that, but overall, we do agree that, that we want to have a better world, and the way things are going in the U.S. at this present time it's not moving in the right direction. And to me, the presidency is completely irrelevant at this point. There are much larger issues at stake. And, that's all I'm trying to say. So, if you can bring yourself to vote for Obama once again or whatever, I'm not going to hold it personally against you. All I'm saying is I'm out of that frame of mind completely. And, I just feel other strategies, more pushy strategies might be better. And also, I would advise everyone just, to go a little bit outside of this whole politics realm. Start looking up some science. Start looking up some art. Start looking into the human psyche. Our fallibilities in terms of psychology, especially mass psychology, and how easily people can be persuaded of something once they have a confirmation bias and so on. These are difficult waters to navigate, and there's no reason for us to be enemies, is what I'm saying. I mean, I've never encountered any true enemies on Methadones for Life channel, that's for sure. We may have argued or something like that, and in the end, once shit hits the fan, I can pretty much guarantee you that people like us are going to hold together. We're going to bridge our differences, and we don't shoot first and ask questions later. We ask the questions first. Okay, thanks, Hugh. Good night, everyone.